Have you ever stopped to wonder why you make the choices you do? Why you pick one brand over another, or why you play it safe when your friend goes all in on a huge risk? Well, it turns out there's a kind of hidden economic logic behind pretty much all of our decisions. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain and break it all down. All right, let's jump right in with a simple question. Just think about it for a second. Would you take the guaranteed 50 bucks, or would you risk it for a 50-50 shot at 100? Now, there's no right or wrong answer here, but what you pick, it actually says a ton about how you're wired to think about value and risk. In fact, this one little choice is our way into understanding the entire world of economic thinking. So your answer to that question, it gets right to the heart of a fundamental concept in economics, your own personal attitude toward risk. And trust me, this isn't just some abstract idea. It's at the core of everything, from how you choose an insurance plan to whether you invest in the stock market. Now, if you chose the guaranteed $50, you're probably what we call risk-averse, which, by the way, is how most of us are. It just means that the pain of walking away with nothing feels way worse than the potential joy of winning the full 100. But if you're a risk lover, you get a thrill from the gamble, and you'd absolutely take that 50-50 shot. And then there's the risk-neutral person who's totally indifferent. I mean, the expected value is the same, so who cares, right? So how do economists actually model this stuff? It's not just a vague feeling. They've actually mapped it out mathematically. This is where we go from a simple gut instinct to some pretty cool economic theory. Just look at the shape of these curves. Utility is really just the economist's fancy word for satisfaction or happiness. For someone who's risk-averse, that curve starts to flatten out. This shows something called diminishing returns. Think of it like this. The first $100 you ever get, that brings you a ton of happiness. The next 100's nice, but it brings you a little less. And the 100th $100 bill you get, it barely moves the needle. And you know what? This whole idea of diminishing utility actually solves a really old puzzle that drove mathematicians crazy for years, the St. Petersburg paradox. So imagine a game. I flip a coin. If it's heads, you get $2. If it's tails, I flip again, and the prize doubles to 4. We keep doubling it every time it's tails until we finally get a heads. If you do the math, the potential payout is literally infinite. So here's the paradox, right? If the game is worth infinite money on paper, why wouldn't you bet your entire life savings just for a chance to play? Of course you wouldn't, and neither would any other sane person. And the reason why? Well, that's the absolute key to rational choice. And this is where this brilliant guy, Daniel Bernoulli, comes in with a solution. He realized that the value of money isn't just its dollar amount. The satisfaction, the utility, you get from going from $0 to $1 million is absolutely huge. But the utility of going from 1 billion to 2 billion, it's much, much smaller. You just wouldn't risk what you already have for a potential gain that doesn't even feel that much better. Okay, so up until now, we've been talking about making a choice against random chance, like a coin flip. But what happens when you're making a choice against another thinking, rational person who's actively trying to anticipate your next move? Well, that's when we step into the amazing world of game theory. In their totally groundbreaking book, Theory of Games and Economic Behavior, these two guys, von Neumann and Morgenstern, basically laid out the different kinds of strategic fights we can get into. You've got your zero-sum game, think poker or chess, where for me to win, you have to lose. But most of real life is non-zero-sum, where we can actually cooperate and create a better outcome for everyone. And the most famous example of this has to be the prisoner's dilemma. So here's the setup. Two partners in crime, let's call them Ranga and Billa, are being questioned by the police in separate rooms. The cops don't really have enough evidence for a major conviction unless one of them decides to rat the other one out. Okay, now try to think about this from Ranga's perspective. He has no idea what Billa is going to do, so he thinks through his options. All right, he thinks, if Billa confesses, I better confess too, because 5 years in jail is way better than 10. But what if Billa stays silent? Well, Ranga thinks, I should still confess, because getting out in 1 year is way better than 2. See, in either scenario, confessing is his best move. That's his dominant strategy. And here's the crazy part. Billa is in the exact same boat, thinking through the exact same logic. So what happens? They both confess. And just look at where they end up. Both of them getting 5 years. By individually choosing the best strategy for themselves, they get stuck in a situation that is clearly worse for both of them than if they had just trusted each other and stayed quiet.
This outcome has a special name. It's called a Nash equilibrium, named after the genius mathematician John Nash. It's a stable outcome because once you're in that box, neither player can improve their own situation by changing their strategy alone. If Ranga suddenly decided to switch to silence while Bilo was still confessing, Ranga would get 10 years instead of 5. So yeah, they're stuck.
So let's zoom out now and see how these individual strategic decisions scale up. Because what are markets, really, if you think about it? They're just massive, multiplayer games where all the companies and all the consumers are playing against the system and against each other. At the two opposite ends of the spectrum of market structures, you've got these two scenarios. On one side, you have perfect competition. It's like a giant farmer's market with so many small sellers of identical products that no single one of them can affect the price. They are price takers. And on the other side, you have a monopoly, a single seller who basically rules the entire market. They are the price maker. And you can see the key differences laid out right here. Under perfect competition, all the profits get competed away until they're just normal. But a monopolist with zero competition can cut back on what they produce and jack up the prices to earn what economists call supernormal profits. It's a much, much better game when you're the only one playing.
In fact, a monopolist's power can go even further. They can do something called price discrimination. This is literally charging different prices for the exact same product. The classic example is what we call third degree, student or senior discounts. But it can also be second degree, like buy two, get one free. Or the holy grail for any seller, first degree, where they can perfectly read your mind and charge you the absolute maximum you would ever be willing to pay.
So, we've talked about your personal feelings about risk, strategic games with a partner, and these massive market structures. They all seem completely different, right? But what if I told you there's one simple idea that connects every single one of them? It all comes down to one central idea. Your personal utility curve, the Nash equilibrium and the prisoner's dilemma, and the profit-maximizing decision for a company, they are all just different expressions of the exact same core principle of rational decision-making.
And here it is. Rational people think at the margin. That's the secret sauce. What it means is that our big decisions aren't really about the total picture, but about the very next step. Should I eat one more slice of pizza? Should our company produce one more car? Should Ranga confess? It's all about weighing the marginal benefit, the extra little bit of gain from one more unit, against the marginal cost, the extra cost of that one more unit. That's the entire game.
So I'll leave you with a final thought to apply to your own life. Just think about your daily interactions, negotiating with a roommate, deciding where to go on vacation with your partner, even just merging into traffic on the highway. How many of those are actually games with dominant strategies and a hidden Nash equilibrium you might be stuck in without even realizing it? Understanding the game you're in is always the first step to playing it better. Thanks for diving into this with us. Now go out there and start applying these rational strategies to your own success.